Not everyone has your best interest at heart. That has been one of my toughest lessons in life. Not everyone is happy for you. Not everyone is clapping hands at your good news. And not everyone wants you to succeed. Hello everyone, my name is Kudzie Mapiye, and on this channel I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. In today's video I'm going to be talking about silence. Keeping your thoughts to yourself. Keeping your plans to yourself. And I am one of those people who still has elements of oversharing, but before I used to be a massive oversharer. Every time something good is happening in my life, I want to tell the next person who's close to me. I want to, I used to assume everyone would be happy for me. Everyone would be as happy as I was, until I learned the hard way. And I just wanted to share with you guys my story of coming to Australia and the things that I experienced on my journey to coming to Australia. And this was some years ago, over a decade ago, but I moved to Australia in 2008, as many of you know who have watched my videos before. And during that time, it was a very difficult time in Zimbabwe, and a lot of people were looking to move out of the country, including myself. So news of moving overseas was seen as, those miracle testimonies you hear today, like they were made up of people's stories to move overseas. That was just the time. That was just, what was happening at that time and what people were wanting to do then. And I remember back in Zimbabwe, you always have a lot of people coming over, different relatives, some staying over. And this was in the early days of me planning to move to Australia. I hadn't even received my visa yet. I was still in the process. And, we had some people visiting our house back in Zimbabwe, some relatives. And I really do hope that this relative of mine watches this video and they know that when they watch it, they're gonna know, like, this is me that I'm talking about. It's you. Yes, it's you. I want them to watch this video because I want them to know the importance of just, keeping your negative thoughts to yourself, because they might keep your negative thoughts to yourself. So anyway, we had a relative that was visiting us at that time, and I was in the early stages of planning to come to Australia. And Australia was not one of those popular countries to come to. I think right now Australia has become more popular, like people are more interested in moving to Australia. But back then, not a lot of people were interested in moving to Australia. It was the usual countries, UK, US, those countries. So when I said I'm planning to go to Australia, I was still in contact with Koala, choosing unis. I think I'd already selected a uni, but I hadn't yet received my visa. I was still in the process. And I shared to them that those were my plans, to move to Australia to study. And I was expecting, that this is my relative and they know my life, they know my journey, and they know what everyone in the country is thinking at that time. So I'm like, I think they're gonna be, it wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind, to be honest. When I told them, I just assumed that they were going to be happy for me and supportive of my journey. I was so surprised at their response. I remember they said to me, do you know that Australia is very hard? You're not going to make it in Australia. They said to me, you're not going to make it in Australia. I know people who've moved to Australia and they've had to move back home. You have to work really hard in Australia. Yeah, you're going to come back. You're not going to make it. And, I was so young at that time. I think I hadn't built the kind of resilience that I have now and the kind of strength that I have and the belief in myself. So I was a little bit more fragile to people's opinions and thoughts. And what my relative said to me really crushed me, to be honest. I felt so demotivated. I'm like, this person knows people who have been in the country that I'm looking to move to, and they know that, these people are not making it. Like, and he was giving examples of professionals. Can you imagine? Like, I had just finished high school, taking a gap year, and he was talking to me about professionals, people who had professional jobs, who had moved to Australia, who were finding it extremely difficult. And I'm like, okay, here I am. I'm just going to be a student. If it's hard for people who are professionals and they have jobs, what more for me? And I remember just feeling so demotivated, so disillusioned, and thinking, man, I might not be able to make it. What am I doing? And it wasn't a place that a lot of people were going to. So I just thought to myself, man, I'm making a big mistake because of what they told me, when I told them that this is my plan. And I remember, I didn't stop my plans to come to Australia, obviously, because I'm now here. I didn't stop my plans, but I didn't, I was very demotivated, and I wasn't as excited because until that point, like I was telling the people who I was telling, and there were not many, the people that I was telling that, hey, I'm going to Australia, they seemed to have a very positive response. And when I heard this, I was like, man, maybe this is not the right decision. And it really crushed my spirit. And I just want to say to people who are planning to relocate, your plans to relocate are very delicate, especially when you haven't secured all the necessary paperwork, such as, visas, or even if you don't have like the money for the ticket, or you haven't secured your ticket, it is still sometimes a little bit too early to share your news with people. Because let me tell you what that did. Let me tell you why I say that. And this is not a talk about witchcraft or, people bewitching you. It's not like that. But I want to tell you the process that went through my mind. When my relative told me that you're not going to make it in Australia and people struggle, blah, 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 he planted a seed in my mind that I was going to fail. And that seed germinated. Like that little seed, like it grew and it grew, especially once I had arrived in Australia. Every time I'd feel like, things are not moving for me, I would hear, my relative's voice saying, you're not going to make it in Australia. So many people come back. So it was just this negative seed that was planted in my mind. And every time, when it felt it was convenient, those words would come back in my mind. And that's not what you need when you're trying to push forward and you're trying to make it. And sometimes, when you're trying to move overseas or do something that people are not doing, or people haven't done, or not many people are doing, some people might not have a positive response to that. And that is not your problem. Like that, you don't need to figure out why they think like that, whether they hate you or not, whether they're jealous. That's really irrelevant. What's relevant is what's coming out of their mouth and the seeds that is going to plant in your subconscious mind. And when you're embarking on a new journey, you need all the positivity that you can get. And sometimes just a negative word from someone can knock you over, because even at that time, you won't be sure of how things are going to go. Like at that time, I wasn't sure that I was going to make it in Australia. I wasn't sure that I was even going to make it to the country. I wasn't sure that my visa was going to be granted. There were so many uncertain things in my mind, and I prematurely decided to share this information with a relative of mine who I assumed would be happy for me. And I think, at that time, because of being naive and young, I used to think that if someone is related to you, they're going to be happy for you. Of course, I knew that there's some relatives that are not always good, but I just assumed. And what really, really shocked me, or what really interested me about this whole thing, is this person used to be at a lot of gatherings for our family, where we're celebrating different things, or where my other siblings have gone overseas and we've had a farewell for them and blah, blah, blah. So, even when you have your farewell parties to go overseas, I sometimes think that, keeping things small and intimate and keeping them to the people who care about you is good, because sometimes you invite all these people and they have all these negative thoughts, and someone can plant a thought and it might seem like they're saying something positive and they're just kicking something negative. They can be like, oh, congratulations, you're going to this country. Oh, but be careful. Yeah. Young people, just be careful. Sometimes things can go wrong. They can just chuck in that little bit of negativity that they can plant, and it will settle there in your subconscious mind. And one day when you're having a bad day, all these thoughts and all these words that people have said to you will start to prop up. That is why it is so important to encourage yourself. And that's one thing that I'm big on. Saying positive things to yourself about the situation that you're currently in and the situation that you want to enter. Because the more positive things you say in your mind, those things are the ones that are going to pop up in your mind when you have uncertainty. If you tell yourself you can make it, you're not going to give up. Many people have done it before and succeeded. If you feed your mind with positivity, those positive thoughts are the ones that are going to come up in your mind when you need them the most, but when you least expect it. And trust me, when I came to Australia, I was knocked down so many times. There were so many times I felt like giving up, thinking this country is not for me. And the loudest voice in my mind was from my relative telling me, you're not going to make it and you're gonna come back home because you're gonna fail in Australia. And if I had listened to that, if I had given into those thoughts, those words, I probably wouldn't be here in this country today. So I just wanted to warn everyone, when you are planning things, and this can even be a business, doesn't have to be just relocating overseas or relocating to another country or moving back to your country of origin. Whatever big plans that you have, whatever big businesses, whatever is is on your heart and you're excited about, it is still in its infant stage. If it's still at that stage where it's not fully formed, the best thing that you can do is to keep it to yourself, because you don't want people's negative words being planted in your subconscious mind and then drowning you with noise when you're trying to concentrate on making this thing happen for yourself. It's so interesting. The other day I was watching a YouTube video, one of the YouTubers, there's a Zimbabwean YouTuber in the UK, and they were talking about when they went to the UK, and they said that when they moved to the UK, they didn't even tell a single person. They just literally they were planning all their moves in silence, and then they only told people that they had gone to the UK when they arrived safely there. And I was like, whoa. That is huge. But I love it. I loved it for them because it obviously helped them to stay focused and stay on track. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your plans. And I know sometimes, being African, we always think about, you don't tell people's plans because they'll bewitch you. I mean, if you believe that, then that's you. But I personally believe that it's all about words that people say, and those words ringing loudly in your head when you don't want to hear them, and when you're alone, when you're crying, when things are not working well, and all you can hear is, you're not going to make it, we told you so, you're going to come back home. Those are not the things that you want to hear. And also to those people who have people share plans with them that are in their infant stages, it's such a privilege for someone to come to you and trust you with that kind of information. And I feel like the least that we can do is to just be sensitive and to just hold the space and just encourage them. It doesn't have to be a plan that you 100% believe in, but at least don't crush the dream. If it's not going to work, then it won't work. Whatever will happen, will happen. But at least don't crush their dreams, or don't say words that are discouraging, because you never know what someone's purpose is in life. And maybe they're telling you a dream or a plan that is linked to their divine purpose, and there you are crushing them and, slowing them down on their course, which is not a good thing to do. And I'm sure if you've ever had someone tell you something discouraging, you know how it is that, you always think about what they've said. It always rings in your mind sometimes especially when you're in the times you're feeling discouraged. You're asking yourself, were they right after all? Should I have listened to them? Was that a word of wisdom that I didn't listen to? You don't want that to happen. Let me tell you, after 16 years in Australia, I can tell you that The thing that has kept me going in this country is positivity, a positive mindset, and saying positive things to myself and encouraging myself, and also allowing people who are genuinely supportive of me to encourage me and to cheer me on, because things can get really, really difficult. It's not a bed of roses. Like, it's not a land with no challenges. There are certain, obstacles that you always have to navigate. There are certain things that don't always go right, but you always need to keep a positive mindset. That's what's going to keep you going. So I just wanted to say to someone, if you are in the beginning, stage of a plan that you're about to execute, please try I know it's really hard. I know it's really hard when you're planning something. You just want to tell someone like, hey, guess what? I'm doing this. If you feel you have to say to someone, like, write it down on a piece of paper. And if you're not a person who likes writing things down, I know there are people who don't like writing things down. You can actually take your phone and record little audios for yourself, just telling yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this plan. I can't wait for this to eventuate. I can't wait till I do this. I can't wait till I do that. Because, there are some people who are like, I give an example of balloon deflators. When you've got a big balloon, like those party balloons, you've got a big balloon, and like my daughter, I know this because my daughter just had her birthday recently, and we bought her all these balloons. And when I was like getting rid of the balloons, I popped, popping holes in them so that they can deflate. I watched the balloon deflate. It was so amazing because I popped a little hole in it and it just went like like just collapsed. Like the air was just sucked out of it and it just, fell to the ground. That's how it is when someone tells us a negative thoughts. It's like they have deflated the air that was keeping us going, the air that was keeping us excited. They've put a hole in it and we just start to deflate until we fall to the ground. So please, please, please do not share your news with balloon deflators. If you're not sure how someone would feel about your news, best to keep it to yourself. And there are those people, every time you're planning something big, every time you're starting something big, you need support. So you can't always be in isolation while you're working, but share with those people who you know and have had history with, like being positive. If you've told them things in the past and they've been positive, and sometimes it's not to say that you shouldn't hear any negative things. Sometimes people can tell you constructive criticism that is truly that it is constructive and you need to tweak a few things in your plan, but you will have a experience of those people. It's people you trust with your information, people you trust with your heart, people you trust with your plans. There are people like that. So, just be very careful because you don't want someone deflating your plans. I don't blame that lady who didn't tell people she was going to the UK and just moved. Because she made it there. Imagine people had demotivated her. She might have listened to their words, listened to their feelings, listened to their thoughts, and not ended up going. So is very, very important. And I find that, especially if there's someone who you regard highly, if they say, negative words have different weight. A negative word from a stranger doesn't have that much impact. A negative word from someone you love and trust has a lot of weight and has the power to destroy you emotionally. So watch out, especially for those people that you love and care about. It's not everyone who you love and care about who's always positive, by the way. So watch out for those people who you actually hold in high regard. Like if you feel like I'm not sure how they're gonna feel about this, keep working at it until you get more concrete plans. And then when things are more certain, then share it. When things are still a little bit, not very formed, very, very risky to tell people. Best to keep the news to yourself. Best to keep your plans to yourself. And it's a mistake I've repeated over and over and over again in my life, where I have had big things going for me and I've told people and I've been surprised at the reaction. I'm like, oh, okay, I thought you were going to be happy or encouraging. And I've just found balloon deflating energy from those people. So be very careful who you share your plans with, and your dreams with, and your hopes with. Especially if you're looking to move overseas, like, talk to people who are encouraging. Trust me, it really, really helps on your journey. I have had, I do coaching, one-on-one coaching sessions for relocation, and I've had from some of my clients, you talk to them and you can tell that someone has been in their ear telling them bad things, because they already have an idea of how bad things can go for them in this country. We've heard this and this has happened, like, I'm really scared this will happen to me. And it's like, it's not all their thoughts. Sometimes people have shared their own personal fears and projected them onto them. Be careful, you're going to Australia. Oh my goodness, you're not going to make it. Oh my goodness, Australia is so hard. Why are you going to Australia so far away? Like, you don't need that kind of energy. Move in silence until you make it, until your plans are concrete, so that you can, instead of filling your subconscious mind with people's negative thoughts, fill it instead with your own positive affirmations, with your own encouraging words, and with your own positive energy. And that's more likely to steer you ahead and to get you where you need to be. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in my next one.